Welcome to the Week 7 Crenbowl recap. I'm Big Papa Pope, here to take you through the best match of this week. Beginning as we always in Division A, we have LA's Necromantic team at home against Jaywalker's Underworld Denizens. LA, returning again to the weekly recap, still fighting for his position in the top 4 even after his 2-1 victory over Darethor's Elven Union, making his record going into this game 4-0-2. With a win here, he takes another steps towards securing that playoff berth. Jaywalker, on the other hand, hasn't had much success this season, being mathematically out of the playoff race with a record of 1-1-4. This isn't stopping Jaywalker from wanting to try to take a big scalp today and begin turning the season around for himself. Starting off on turn 2, where LA is blitzing his white onto the ball carrier through a weak cage setup, already pointing the Denizens into a position of trying to recover the ball so that their first offensive drive doesn't crumble before it even begins. After a brief scramble for the ball, on turn 4, the werewolf stuns a goblin and pushes him onto the ball, where it then scatters behind the necromantic side of the field, giving a massive advantage to LA as a white is in the area to pick up the ball on this very turn. Sure enough, later in the turn, the white grabs the ball and runs up the right side of the field, attempting a breakaway from the Denizens, who are reeling, trying to get the ball back into their possession. Despite the breakaway, more action is happening at midfield, with the troll getting a permanent injury onto a flesh golem, making it lose 1 agility and putting him out of the game after a field regeneration, weakening the overall strength that the necromantic team brings to the table. That injury doesn't affect the outcome of this drive, however, as LA brings the ball carrier in for the touchdown on turn 6. LA did a great job capitalizing on an opportunity here, given to him by the mistake Jaywalker made by bringing the ball so close to the defensive line on turn 2. With the Denizens receiving the ball before the half ends, a goblin is thrown by the star player Morganthor into necromantic territory, where then the goblin sprints close to the end zone, hoping to close out the half by tying the game. Despite a last defensive attempt by the werewolf to stop the goblin from going in, a both down leaves it in the hands of the Denizens. Jaywalker, with an opportunity to even the game up, dodges away from the ghoul, picks up the ball, and runs into the end zone, making this game 1-1. A great recovery effort by Jaywalker, who is still very much competitive in this game. Wanting to quickly respond, after receiving the ball in the second half, the ghoul ball carrier sees a path opened up by his team and runs through to get into scoring range, putting immediate pressure on the Denizens to defend the end zone. That defensive effort comes in the way of a Skaven lineman blitzing the ghoul, stunning him, and taking the ball for himself, giving his team an opportunity to turn this drive into their favor. More pauses for the Denizen side as Walker's purchase of Groggenthog gets justified with a kill onto one of LA's zombies, once again weakening the necromantic roster. Those pauses are short-lived because the pressure from the necromantic side made it so that the Denizens couldn't secure the ball carrier, leaving the Skaven vulnerable to an attack by the werewolf and a ball pickup by the white on the scatter. Moving on to the last turns of the game, a Skaven blitzes from behind, but not onto the ball carrier, but onto a ghoul, which leads to another ghoul being surfed and dying on the pitch. While maybe not saving the touchdown, it will bring into question how strong LA's team can truly be after this match. To secure the touchdown, and as a possible act of revenge, the white blitzes, knocks the murderous Skaven down, and brings the ball in for the touchdown, ending the game 2-1, and another victory on the trot for LA. Even though the pressure was in the red zone for almost the entirety of the second half, Jaywalker did a commendable job keeping them out as long as he did. Plus, the deaths accumulated in this match are sure to weaken the necromantic team going into the final stages of the season. For the final match in Division A, we have up-and-coming YouTube star Crendor versus professional video game monologuer Big Papa Pope. Hey, that's me. Coming into this game, Crendor is still in playoff contention at 2-1-3, but after losing 1-0 in Week 6 by the hand of Eichton's Orcs, Crendor is looking to bounce back. Meanwhile, I am coming off my first win of the season, being Saito's Undead, and I'm coming into this game hoping to create a win streak. At the end of Week 6, when Crendor looked at this next match and saw that was my team, he said in relief, "We need a game like this." Taking great offense, I set out this week to prove I wasn't just a team that could be pushed over. We'll see if that happened. Coming in on turn 3, after panicking because of a situation I entirely put myself in, the blitzer runs out of a cage and hands the ball off to a blocker, who then runs up the field with only a lineman to assist him once the Khemri swarm the ball. On the very next turn, the Khemri blitzer comes in and brings the ball carrier down, ending the Bretonnian offensive drive before it can even begin, and giving the Khemri a great opportunity to create a productive offensive drive themselves. On turn 4, the Khemri blitzer picks the ball up and runs into the Bretonnian side of the field, scaring me as I have to remember how to play defense. Somehow, the Bretonnians are able to actually stop the Khemri drive down the left side of the field, and actually take down the ball carrier on turn 7. But with no time left to create a score, the half ends 0-0. Going into the second half, with the Khemri receiving the ball, they try once again on the left side of the field. With a large part of the Bretonnian roster on the ground, there doesn't seem to be much of a defensive response. On turn 13, the offensive drive turns out to be a success, leading to the Khemri side leading 1-0 with little time to spare. Crendor moved his team methodically down the field and made it very difficult for the Bretonnian defense to break through, especially with a quickly depleting roster. With the Khemri blitz on kickoff, the Bretonnian drive is already almost a disaster before they can even pick up the ball. But with a blitz to push a Khemri blitzer off the ball, the Bretonnian blitzer picks it up after a reroll. And in a fun roll of the dice, fails the subsequent GFI. In the next turn, in a desperate attempt to tie the game up, the same blitzer that failed the GFI goes for a big-time play by dodging in and out of tackle zones to pick up the ball and throw it to a lineman, only for the lineman to fail the catch and roll. Onto the final turn of the game, where the Khemri are able to pick up the ball, hand it off, and bring it in for the touchdown, ending this game 2-0 in favor of the Khemri. The strength and brutality of the Khemri side won the day, as the Bretonnians had a weak roster by the middle of the second half, forcing them to go for desperate plays in an attempt to salvage the game. With this win, Crendor keeps himself in playoff contention, as him and two others are fighting for that final playoff spot. Let's talk about that playoff spot. So looking at Division A standings at the end of Week 7, we have Von Kock keeping his spot at the top of the leaderboard, with Eichton and the Sage keeping their second and third places respectively. Those three are essentially locked in for the playoffs. The fight for fourth, however, is where things are getting interesting. With Alay, Crendor, Darethor, and Thraljo all having a chance to take this fourth spot, this would be something that we are going to watch in the coming weeks. Moving on to Division B, we have Heinz's Dwarves going up against Xeldamari's Dark Elves. Xeldamari is coming into this game undefeated and at the top of the leaderboard, sitting at 4-2-0. Coming into this game on a 3-game win streak as well, Xeldamari is hoping another win to help clinch a playoff spot later in the season. Heinz's season hasn't been successful, unfortunately, currently sitting at 1-2-3. Heinz is hoping that facing a low AV armored team today can be in his favor, as his bashy Dwarves have the immediate strength advantage. Even though Xeldamari is at the top of the division, a team full of tackle skill make the possibility of high agility plays much more difficult for him. Going into the game on turn 3, we see the Dwarves bashing their way through the defensive line and beginning their push onto the Dark Elf side of the field, making sure that there are enough Dwarves in between the Elves and the ball carrier. Despite that, the Dwarven line bends and allows an opening for an Elven blitzer to come in and knock the ball carrier down, making the Dwarves change their offensive plan if they want to keep their drive alive. On the next turn, despite the knockdown, the Dwarves bring their second runner from the back lines and have him advance the ball up the field, continuing the Dwarves' slow grind towards the end zone and starting to make the Elven defense get a little more desperate. On turn 5, the Dwarves are still continuing the slow advancement up the field, but something I want to highlight here is Heinz's comfort in not being aggressive in this offense. A lot of the time, you'll find coaches want to break away from the pack and then delay near the end zone, but Heinz is content with the ball carrier taking a turn to only move up one space because he has confidence in his Dwarven players to hold the line and allow very few attempts on the ball carrier. Great conservative decision making by Heinz. The conservative play calling bears fruit, as on turn 8 the Dwarven runner brings the ball in for the touchdown, making this game 1-0. This was a fantastic drive by the Dwarven coach, as it showcased how scary a team like this can be. With very few armor breaks, it was difficult for the Elves to create opportunities for themselves on defense. On offense, however, well, the Elves are known for that, and on the last turn of the drive, off of the kickoff by the Dwarves, the Dark Elves have a chance at the coveted one-turn touchdown. Unfortunately, however, the ball carrier fails the GFI, leaving this game 1-0 going into the locker room. On turn 11, disaster strikes for the Dark Elves, as the ball carrier, trying to break away from the pack in the middle of the field, gets injured by a blitzing dwarf. Not only that, but the ball doesn't just fall on the ground. No, it scatters across a few players and finally lands in the hands of a lineman who just so happens to be right in front of 4 dwarves who would be more than happy to take that ball out of his hands and begin their second offensive drive of the game. Turn 12 doesn't fare much better for the Elves, as the Dwarves pick the ball up and surround the Dwarven runner with players to make it even more difficult for the Elves to recover the ball, perhaps denying even a tie in this game. That indeed is the case, as the Dwarves are able to transfer from defense to offense well enough to protect the ball carrier all the way to the end zone, who then scores on the last turn of the game, making this a 2-0 in favor of the Dwarves. An amazing upset by Heinz today, as he showed the potential of this Dwarven team to everyone as he took this big scalp. Xeldamari takes his first loss of the season, and will have to lick his wounds and get ready for next week, as he still has a playoff spot to clinch. Alright, onto the final game of Division B, we have Sasuke's Wood Elves versus DigiPichu's Amazons. Both teams are in playoff contention, but Sasuke is in a much better spot, sitting at 3-0-3. while Pichu is having a tough time of it, sitting at 1-1-4. Pichu stated before this match that one of his main objectives going into the game was to make sure that he never ended a turn next to Sasuke's treeman, so that it was forced to take a take-root role every time it wanted to be relevant in the match. Let's see if this strategy brings victory to the Amazons. Starting off on turn 1 with perhaps the best start the Amazons could ask for. A quick kill onto the level 2 War Dancer, which re-rolled into a kill again, instantly making this game swing into the favor of the Amazonian team. Trying to recover from the loss, the Wood Elves waste no time getting the ball from the ground after a questionable decision by the Amazons to bring the ball to midfield. An elf runs in and throws the ball to a receiver already behind the Amazon line. Unfortunately, the throw fails, however, and causes a turnover. Preventing disaster, on turn 3, an Amazon comes and throws the ball to an open receiver who runs deep into Elven territory, exposing the overcommitment by the Wood Elves and threatening a 1-0 lead for the Amazons. Wasting no time on the score, on turn 5, the Amazon ball carrier runs into the end zone after stunning the final Elven defender and makes this game 1-0 in favor of the Amazons. This drive showed how quickly a game could turn on its head when two high agility teams are playing against each other. Moving on to the second half, the day does not get any easier for Sasuke as another elf lies dead on the floor, once again weakening what is already turning into a very thinned out roster. Despite the bloody game this has been, the Wood Elf ball carrier breaks through the surrounding Amazon line and gets deep into enemy territory, threatening the tie despite the massive losses suffered on his side. Unfortunately, the Elves didn't create enough space between the ball carrier and the Amazons, leading to the ball forced out of a stunned Elf's hands. In a stroke of luck, however, another Wood Elf catches the ball on the scatter and waits no time bringing it in for the touchdown. Another drive showcasing the high agility of both teams, and massive amounts of credit to Sasuke to push through all the setbacks to score on this drive. The positives end there, unfortunately, as at this point in the game, the Wood Elves have suffered so many injuries that there are only 4 players on the field for the Elves, and one of them is a tree that has just taken root, leading to a desperate blitz that doesn't even happen because of the War Dancer's failed GFI. This game goes from bad to a disaster for the Wood Elves as another death is suffered at the hands of the Amazons, leading to there being only one elf on the field for Sasuke at this point in the game. Finally, with no opposition on the field, the Amazon ball carrier runs in for the touchdown, ending this game 2-1. Low armor value was Sasuke's kryptonite today, as the amount of death and permanent injuries actually forced him to reset his team this late into the season. Of course, massive props to Pichu for capitalizing on the opportunities given in this game to secure this win. In Division B, the battle for the playoffs is competitive, with no one securing a playoff spot yet, and there are currently 7 teams that could possibly see themselves in there. The current top 4 belongs to Greg Kirby, Xeldamari even after his loss this week, Coach Detective, and Hellbent Wolfbot, all coaches that are looking to keep their spots in the top 4. We shall see in the coming weeks if they can. Jumping into Division C, we have Sparky's Bretonnians versus Zelash's Khemri. Zelash is coming into this game at the top 4 of the leaderboard, but is coming out of week 6 suffering his first loss at the hand of IE Puppy's High Elf team, making his record 3-2-1. Zelash is hoping to bounce back this week, but has a difficult opponent ahead of him called Sparky. Sparky is coming into this game after a win against Heckle's Chaos, as we saw last week, making his record 4-1-1. Both of these teams are favorites to make it into the playoffs, and this game could be a teaser for a possible matchup for when these two powerhouse teams meet again. The game starts off with the Khemri team blitzing on kickoff and with a favorable ball position are already threatening to take possession away from the Bretonnians before the ball even touches the ground, a massive advantage for the Khemri side. The Bretonnians waste no time trying to salvage this possession, with a blitzer coming in and picking the ball up in a tackle zone and dodging away. But with no protection, that blitzer is very vulnerable to a Khemri blitz. On the next turn, that happens with the Tomb Guardian coming in and knocking the blitzer down. The ball, however, falls out of bounds and gets launched behind the Bretonnian line, a massive game changer as it allows the Bretonnians to regroup. On turn 2, a Bretonnian lineman picks the ball up and hands it off to a blitzer, who runs up the right side of the field, perhaps finally finding the opening the Bretonnian side needed to make this drive successful. Turn 3, after stunning the only defender with the blitzer's way, the Bretonnians score first, making this game 1-0. A quick drive that almost started in catastrophe for Sparky, but a lucky launch and perhaps an overcommitment by Zelash led to this fast score. Turn 5 is not any easier for the Khemri side, as another blitzer once again runs into a tackle zone, once again picks the ball up, and once again runs away with it. We may need to check and make sure those aren't elves under the armor. Zelash has wised up, however, and made sure that there were enough people back just in case a breakaway like this happened. He successfully knocks the ball carrier down and has the ball securely in Khemri's possession once again. Jumping to turn 7, the Bretonnian roster is being lost one by one. For a last desperate play, the blitzer attacks the ball carrier with red dice. And somehow it works, knocking the Khemri ball carrier to the ground and stopping the Khemri from scoring. Only for a little while, however, as the ball carrier breaks away and valiantly hands the ball off to the player in the end zone, and he failed the handoff. 1-0 first half for the Bretonnians. The second half begins so much better for the Khemri, however, as the damage that was being caused by them has depleted the Bretonnian line, making it easy for a cage to be set up deep in Bretonnian territory. Knowing there's an opportunity here for a comeback, the Khemri ball carrier wastes no time sprinting into the end zone, tying this game up at 1-1. Once again, the damage done by Zelash earlier in the game has led to a possible second half comeback for the win. As a congratulations for that touchdown, it seems a fan has decided it's time to celebrate and pelt one of the Khemri players in the head, instantly killing him. Who said there was no such thing as home field advantage in Blood Bowl? Despite that tiny bit of murder, the Khemri do end up with the ball again due to the overwhelming amount of force that the Khemri have against the Bretonnians at this stage of the game, and begin sprinting down the field, hoping to score one more time before the game ends. That is indeed what happens. The Khemri ball carrier trots in for the final score of the game, and to get 2-1 in favor of the Khemri. Much like the previous Khemri game, this one was saved by the overwhelming strength of this team. With Sparky not being able to put up much of a fight second half due to this, it gives Zelash the lead over Sparky in the rankings. This game was easily my favorite to watch this week, and I hope these two face off again in the playoffs. On to the final game of Division C, we have MizunoMasuta Skaven versus Robin Claassen's Halflings. Both these teams are in the middle of the leaderboard and are on the outside looking in as far as playoff potential is concerned. Robin having the best chance between the two, sitting at 3-2-1 going into this game, and is coming off a win against Vazadi's Necromantic team, while Mizu is sitting at 2-2-2 and is also coming in win against Professor Plum's Dark Elves. Both teams are coming into this match with momentum and are hoping to propel their chances of getting into the top 4. Robin is hoping his inducements of Zara the Slayer and Puggy will give him the edge over the slippery Skaven team. The answer to what value Puggy will have in this game gets answered as a treeman uses Puggy as a projectile in an attempt to get near the ball carrier. Unfortunately, the treeman missed and sent Puggy straight into a Skaven, injuring Puggy and putting him out for the game, making that essentially a $140,000 projectile. Jumping to turn 4, where Mizu uses his gutter runner to sprint towards the end zone, while a good chunk of the Halflings are marked by the Rat Ogre, forcing Robin to choose how many resources can he use to take down the Rat Ogre, while also stopping the gutter runner from scoring. The answer is about 3 Halflings are needed. 1 for the assist, 1 for the blitz, and 1 for the pickup on the ball. And also a foul on the gutter runner for even thinking about scoring. This leads to no injury, as the Apothecary actually does his job for once, but this does give Robin the ball and a gutter runner out for the drive. A short-lived victory, however, as the Stormvermin comes in and knocks the ball carrier down, letting the ball scatter to the ground right in front of the Halfling end zone, putting pressure on the Halflings to come up with a defensive strategy. After a multi-turn scramble for the ball, the Skaven come out on top as the thrower blitzes in and secures the ball for his team. The Halflings' hopes of delaying it until the end of the half is slowly dwindling. On the next turn, with security of the ball, the thrower runs in after knocking a Halfling down to make the score 1-0 for the Skaven side. Mizu did a great job recovering after what looked like a lost possession at the goal line, but Robin should also be commended as well for delaying as long as he did against these high agility players. Jumping to turn 11, where we find a Halfling fouling and killing a gutter runner, lessening the amount of tools that the Skaven have to defend this drive by the Halflings. Moving on to turn 13, where the Halflings pick the ball up and begin running towards the left sideline, with very few Skaven players left on the pitch to prevent the score, almost guaranteeing that this match is going to be tied within the final turns of this game. And on turn 14, it does come to pass as the Halfling dives into the end zone, tying the game up at 1-1. As a common theme this week, Robin's team has shown surprising strength that the Halflings can have when it comes to injuring their opponents, and leaving very few on the field to stop offensive drives. But on turn 15, an overcommitted line leads to a possible final turn comeback as the Skaven runs for the ball and passes it to another Skaven who runs down the length of the field, shocking the Halflings and catching them with their pants down. The Halflings do manage to get the Skaven knocked down, thanks to a blitz by Zara the Slayer. But that doesn't mean that a score is impossible here, thanks to how close the ball is to the end zone. But the Skaven gets up, has to reroll a dodge, finally dodges away, picks the ball up, runs towards the end zone, and fails the GFI. What a tragic way to end an amazing game. Let's look at what that tie did to the standings. Currently, Robin sits at 5th with a very real chance of squeezing into the playoffs. Meanwhile, there are 2 other teams within striking distance of a playoff spot as well, those being I Eat Puppies and Heckle Plays. The current top 4 of the division go as Bastoza, Zelash, who we saw take a victory against the number 3 team today, Sparky, and Morrow comes in at the 4th playoff spot. This division is very competitive as well, with 7 teams within 2 games of each other. With 4 games left in the season, anything can happen here. Finally, at the final of the division, we have J Boz's Amazon versus Gray's Human team. J Boz is a new coach to the recap, but is sitting comfortably in the top 4 with a record of 4-2-0. J Boz is hoping for a win today to bring him closer to clinching that playoff spot. On the other side of the field, we have Gray returning again to the recap, and as we saw last week, is in desperate need of a win, taking his first loss last week against Amzaz's Undead team, making Gray's record coming into this 4-1-1. Another top 4 matchup here, as these teams are vying to keep themselves at the top of the division standings. Beginning on turn 3, with the humans receiving the ball, the offensive wall is already having problems as the Amazon comes in and blitzes the ball carrier down, already scattering the ball before the humans could even get far past midfield. On turn 4, with the ball on the ground and both teams trying to gain control, an Amazon comes in and kills a human, adding to the massive death toll we have seen this week, an early advantage found for the Amazons. On to turn 5, the fight for the ball control ends as the Amazons pick the ball up and run deep into the human side of the field. And that breakaway bears fruit, as on the final turn of the drive where we find ourselves at the goal line, after an attempt of a response by the humans, the Amazon pick up the ball and run in for the touchdown, making this game 1-0 going into the locker rooms. A great drive by Jay Bosla to capitalize on the chaos that ensued once the ball was on the ground at midfield. Heads-up decision making by the Amazon coach. On to the second half, where the Amazons receive the ball and begin this drive by being able to form a cage inside human territory, already forcing the humans to try and break through a well-made cage. Jumping all the way to turn 14, where we see the Amazons once again at the goal line and about to score. And with the blitz and a quick run into the end zone, does, putting this game 2-0 in favor of the Amazons. This drive was successful purely through the well-made cages that Jay Baza used when bringing the ball towards the end zone. This was great textbook Blood Bowl on display today. Despite the convincing 2 scores, the humans are going down swinging, not only causing an injury that forced an Amazon to miss the next game, but also killing another Amazon, once again adding to the high death toll of this week. Even if it doesn't affect the outcome of this game, Gray is showing that these humans can still be a threat. The humans may not come out of this game scoreless, as the ball carrier runs up and throws to a player waiting in the end zone, only to fail the throw roll, causing the turnover and making it even more difficult for the humans to get rid of the donut on their side of the scoreboard. And this failed roll proves to be fatal, as an Amazon once again comes in for a blitz and surfs the player in the end zone, causing another death for the human side. Trying to persevere through the lost men, the humans are able to bring the ball in for the touchdown, ending this game 2-1 in favor of the Amazon team. Jay Baza showed great textbook Blood Bowl today, and with a few high injury rolls on the human side, gave him the edge in this matchup. Gray is facing his second loss in a row and is going to have to collect his thoughts and bounce back in week 8 if he wants to stay relevant in the playoff race. For the final game of the week, we have Tibelius' Nurgle team versus Adok's Skaven. Tibelius is new to the recap and is unfortunately not finding too much success in League, sitting at 1-1-4. Coming off of a loss to Aramis' Elven Union, Tibelius is hoping to come out this week with a positive match. Adok, on the other hand, is coming into this game at 5-0-1, is in the top 4 of Division D. Hoping to take a win here, Adok was hoping to improve his chances of being in the top 4 by the end of the season. Jumping to turn 2, we see the Strength 4 Gutter Runner blitzing the Nurgle ball carrier and dropping the ball at midfield, and then another Skaven coming in to pick it up and bring it back behind the Skaven line to protect it. Smart conservative planning by Adok. Turn 4, Adok finds a lane and runs his Gutter Runner ball carrier 13 spaces into Nurgle territory, showcasing the incredible speed that this team possesses. On turn 5, a bit of a greedy play by Adok as the ball is handed off to another Skaven for the touchdown, only for them to fail the GFI roll on the goal line, causing that Skaven to be badly hurt and for the ball to be launched away from the end zone. Things go from bad to worse for Adok, as on turn 6, a Gutter Runner gets injured, and on the Apothecary reroll, actually dies, causing Adok to lose one of his high agility tools. Turn 7, the Nurgle find themselves in a unique spot, with no one actually standing up to stop them from scoring. With a pass completed and a run up the field, the Nurgle have completely turned this drive around. That is what I would say if the ball carrier also didn't fail a GFI of their own on the goal line and didn't also injure themselves, making this a 0-0 game going into halftime. Trying to make up for lost time, the Skaven wastes none of it as the throw passes to a gutter runner who then runs up the left side of the field, threatening to score almost immediately in this game, almost the inverse of what we saw in the first half. On the very next turn, Adok, not making the same mistake twice, runs his ball carrier in for the touchdown. A very quick response by Adok, who showcased how scary a high movement player like the gutter runner can be. Well, that sense of satisfaction is lost as Adok loses his level 3 Skaven with +1 movement allowance at the hands of the Nurgle Rodder, who then just casually hobbles up the field. A massive loss for Adok this week, one that can have major implications for the rest of the season. And in a final attempt to stop the tying score from coming in, the Strength 4 Gutter Runner blitzes in, only to knock himself out with a both down roll. A perfect summation of how the second half has gone for Adok. On the bright side, the runner can't die now. And on turn 16, the tying score comes in, making this game 1-1. It's crazy to think that this game could have been a win for either side if just one of those GFIs in the first half didn't fail. I'm sure Adok is kicking himself for that, though he may be mourning the loss of his star players even more. Finally, let's take a look at the standings in Division D. Aramis is a full game ahead of the rest of the league, sitting at 6-0-1, while the closest to him is Jay Baza and Adok in second and third. Though as you saw, Adok lost a lot of huge players on this roster this week, so it'll be interesting to see how he fares in the next few games. Gray is still holding on to fourth, but is going to need to bounce back in week 8 if he wants to keep it, because Ormzaz and Flamey Dude are right on his tail, only a game behind. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been your Week 7 Crenbowl recap. I've been Big Papa Pope, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care.